Hello. We're in the precipice of female-only families. 43% of all children in America live without their fathers, and the situation is following the same trend in many of the countries in the West. I think it's imperative to talk about the role of men in our present society. The current climate of fatherlessness has resulted in many negative outcomes. 63% of young suicides are from fatherless homes. 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from fatherless homes. 85% of all children with behavior disorders come from fatherless homes. 80% of rapists with anger problems come from fatherless homes. 71% of high school dropouts come from fatherless homes. I'm predicting that fatherlessness will probably be the most common way to raise a family by the next decade. With the results that we have at hand, who do we blame? Feminists will tell us that this climate of misandry needs to be addressed. Men are being prosecuted for having opposing opinions, and the men that would otherwise speak up are now silenced. The Gregory Alan Elliott trial in Canada is a chilling reality for things to come. But for the time being, we're still here. Feminists have still not managed to pass a law that declares our genitals illegal, though in the UK we might be up for a complete gender segregation very soon, and I'm looking forward to that, to be fair. So I will assume that the trend above will only continue, and we still have some time to talk for the time being. Statistics often lie. Correlation does not necessarily point to causation. And though it's common practice to simply blame the individual people involved, when the problem is this big, it of course has something to do with society at large too. If 70% of divorces are initiated by a woman, the cause of all this child suffering is of course the result of the actions of that 70% of women and the 30% of men. If the majority of men from 18 to 35 are avoiding marriage, if the majority of couples that do get married end up in divorce, I think the whole problem is by extent societal and its core. Divorce used to be a rare phenomenon, and the safety and upbringing of children used to be the priority for men and women everywhere. The majority of pregnancies are either mistimed or unintended. Together they form 51% of the pregnancies in the US. Therefore, a whole generation of boys and girls were born either unwanted or unplanned, and later on they were raised with the mother alone. I hate the phrase of, "What about the children?" But what about the fucking children? Who is to raise these children, to make them men and to make them women? If one thing is for certain, men are essential in the upbringing of a child. No matter how feminists paint it, evidence, statistics don't lie. These statistics were not concocted by them, and we can clearly see the effect that fatherlessness has on society in general and on the children. Can we postulate that the maturity level of a lot of people is simply not where it's supposed to be? Are all these trigger warnings, the social justice warriors and the eradication of free speech symptoms of a wider society who was raised without the influence of a person who had to fight for everything that he ever got in his life? Could this infantilization of society be the direct result of fathers no longer being involved in families? Could it be that the young men who challenge you in society, the young teenagers in the comment sections of our videos, be men who never grew up, who never had a person that inspired respect at home? Are we as a society lacking male role models so much that the emotional and intellectual maturity of young adults and children is stunted because of the way that things are? To me, the correlations point to causations. To me, the symptoms of this society do point the finger to the women that kick out the men from their homes, to the judges who award default custodies to women, to the profiteers from divorce cases, and to the feminists who have painted all men in society as rapists and animals. The evidence is there to see. The leap of faith is not even that difficult to do anymore. What we have been discussing for years is now evident in a society that is quite symptomatic, a society that's running a full circle. Evidence and facts are now replaced with feelings and political correctness. Science is being forced at a standstill because of the emotions of immature, intellectually challenged art majors who take the teachings of their gender classes as scientific fact and force it upon the actual scientists. Conversation is often filtered and is quite uninteresting, as no one ever challenges the status quo of emotions, self-entitlements, and immature outbursts of aggressive, unintelligible, and often unattractive women. Fat is beautiful, stupid is smart, hate is love, censorship is freedom of speech. Where are we going with all this shit? The weight of this unbearable reality is weighing on the shoulders of all those that are awakened to it. I often wonder how people like Sargon deal with the level of this immaturity and stupidity. How do they find it in them to fight this plague of social justice warrior infants? I feel stupid just by listening to them. I feel blessed to be in this space, and I feel sad every day when I see more and more idiots earning positions of influence, people who are otherwise intelligent being brainwashed into obedience because feminists control the narrative, and no one wants to put any effort into looking at sources and evidence. Although I disagree with the efforts of anti-feminists, I tend to agree with their resolve, and I believe what they're doing is generally good. It's pointless, but it's good. We need men and women who speak truthfully, unfiltered, and are not scared of the consequences of their opinions. Somewhere deep inside of me, I'm hoping that some of these fatherless children will not be impressed by the girls that Lil Wayne beds, the money of Jay-Z, and the ass of Beyoncé. I hope that somewhere still, the intellectual curiosity of men still exists. The superficial nothingness becomes unimportant, and they will admire the intellectual honesty of words and phrases and science. That some people will still seek the highest achievements in science because they seek truth. That some people will still get impressed by the impressive rhetoric of intellectuals. That the fields that the world runs on will be overturned by the feelings of injustice, by the oppression of thought, and some people will start to shake with anger as to how we have become. My grandfather never bowed to anyone, not to God and nor to any man. I was raised by people that told me to never shut up. If you're right, never shut up. But the burden of proof was always placed upon myself in order to prove my point. Children now and adults don't care about proof. They don't care about truth. They care about popularity, likes, and shares. The only truths are the laws, the memes, the idiotic content that makes people laugh, and the drugs that make us numb. Isn't this the decline? Within MGTOW, we have a distinct number of people willing to help other men. We have men who are vocal, who are unfiltered. We have men who hate assumptions and who demand proof. If we continue like this, if we continue challenging each other, we are cultivating a community with the standards of science, with the standards of free thinkers and philosophers. We're small, but communities like this were never large, yet they ended up shaping the face of the world. The world needs dreamers and thinkers, and within our midst we have both. The young men that find their way to us, I believe, receive a different education other to the one that they receive outside this space. I believe they learn to speak freely and express their minds. We're visible, yet we express the freedom of expression that is only found in the corners of the internet, the very dark corners of the internet. It's important to challenge each other. It's important to talk to each other. It's important to carry the conversation to new and undiscovered fields, and it's doubly important to engage with the young amongst us. It's important to press them for the burden of proof, to hold them accountable and at the same standards as everyone else. For the young men that are within this space, keep asking idiotic questions and keep challenging us. And please, feel free to do some of your own research and bring that research to our attention and educate us with anything that we might be missing on. And teach to us your way and your path. We're not here just to talk to you, but we're also here to listen and to try to understand you and to understand your realities. Thank you for listening.